I never imagined my engagement party would become the stage for my own humiliation, or that the man I loved would choose my sister in front of everyone we knew. But when Ethan dropped to one knee before Lila, something crystallized inside me, a cold certainty that I had prepared for this moment without even knowing it. As the diamond ring caught the light in my venue, my space, my creation, with my name on the deed, I felt a smile spread across my face. They thought they were writing the final act of our story, but they had forgotten who held the pen. If you're watching this now, you're about to learn why the most dangerous person in any room is the one who built it. If this story resonates with you, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories about deception, betrayal, and finding the strength to reclaim your life. The spotlight caught the diamond ring perfectly, sending prisms of light dancing across the cream-colored walls of the grand hall. My venue, my engagement party, my fiancé kneeling on one knee, in front of my sister. I stood frozen, champagne flute gripped so tightly I felt it might shatter in my palm. The room spun in slow motion as Ethan's words echoed through the microphone he'd requested for the special toast. "Lila, will you marry me?" My sister's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. Her white dress, when had I not noticed she was wearing white, glowed under the chandelier lights I'd personally selected when renovating this place. Then everything went black. 6 months earlier, I sat across from Ethan at our favorite bistro, tucked away in a corner booth where the city's ambient noise faded to a comfortable hum. His dark eyes crinkled at the corners as he reached for my hand, thumb brushing over my knuckles in that way that always made my heart skip. "I was thinking," he said, voice low and intimate, "about our engagement party." I raised an eyebrow. "Aren't you getting ahead of yourself? I don't recall seeing a ring on this finger." I wiggled my bare left hand teasingly. He laughed, that rich baritone that had first drawn me in 2 years ago at a charity auction. "Just planning ahead. When, not if, we get there, we should host it at your venue. The grand would be perfect." The grand was my baby. After my parents passed away 5 years ago, leaving me with nothing but an insurance payout and their belief in my potential, I'd poured everything into creating an event space that combined old-world elegance with modern amenities. It had taken blood, sweat, and more tears than I cared to admit, but the Grand was now the premier venue in the city for those who could afford it. "You'd want to have it there?" I asked, genuinely surprised. Ethan typically preferred sleek, contemporary spaces that matched his aesthetic as the CEO of a rising tech firm. "Of course," he said, his smile warming me from the inside out. "It's important to you, so it's important to me. Plus, I'd like to handle some of the logistics myself, as a surprise." I melted a little. For all his ambition and sometimes workaholic tendencies, Ethan had these moments of thoughtfulness that reminded me why I'd fallen for him. "I'd like that," I said simply. 3 weeks later, my sister Lila breezed through my front door in a flurry of designer luggage and duty-free perfume. "Ava," she squealed, dropping her bags in the entryway and throwing her arms around me. "God, I've missed you." I hugged her back, breathing in her familiar scent, now with notes of something exotic, probably picked up during her 2-year stint modeling in Europe. "Welcome home, world traveler." Lila pulled back, her blue eyes, identical to mine, the only feature we truly shared, scanning my apartment appreciatively. "Still the minimalist, I see. Some things never change." "And some things do," I replied, eyeing her new platinum blonde hair, cut in a stylish bob that highlighted her high cheekbones. "The hair is different. Do you like it?" She twirled, somehow making the simple movement look like it belonged on a runway. "My agent says blonde photographs better for cosmetics campaigns." I helped her carry her bags to the guest room, which would be her home until she found her footing back in the States. At 26, Lila was still living the free-spirited life our parents had always indulged. They'd called her their butterfly, beautiful, delicate, and impossible to pin down. I was their rock, dependable, solid, the one who would make something of herself through sheer determination. So, Lila flopped onto the guest bed, somehow making rumpled travel clothes look elegant. Tell me everything. How's the venue? How's that dreamy boyfriend of yours? When do I get to meet him? I sat on the edge of the bed. The Grand is doing well. Just booked through next spring. And Ethan's great. We're talking about getting engaged, actually. Lila squealed again, sitting up to grab my hands.
Ava.
That's incredible. He must be something special to nail down my workaholic sister. I smiled, but something in her choice of words pinched at me. We're hosting a dinner tomorrow night. Some friends and Ethan's business partners. You should come. I'd love to. Her smile was dazzling, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. I can't wait to see the man who captured my big sister's heart. The dinner should have been my first warning. Lila arrived 20 minutes late, wearing a red dress that seemed engineered to display her perfect figure. She'd done something to her makeup that made her eyes look larger, her lips fuller. Every head turned when she entered the private dining room I'd reserved at the Grand, including Ethan's. Sorry I'm late, she announced to the table of 12. Jet lag is a beast. I made the introductions, watching as she charmed each guest with practiced ease. When she reached Ethan, she held his hand a beat too long. So you're the man my sister's been keeping secret, she said, her voice dropping to a silky register. I can see why. Ethan smiled, recovering quickly from whatever had flashed across his face when she first walked in. Ava's told me all about you. The international model sister. All good things, I hope? Lila laughed, taking the empty seat across from him rather than the one I'd saved beside me. Throughout dinner, Lila commanded attention. She told stories of photo shoots in Morocco, parties in Milan, famous photographers who had captured her image. Each tale more exotic than the last, each anecdote perfectly timed to draw laughs or gasps. I watched Ethan watching her, and something cold settled in my stomach. The next morning, I found Lila in my closet, trying on my cream cashmere sweater. This is gorgeous, she said, admiring herself in the full-length mirror. You should wear it more often. Shows off your figure. I was planning to wear it today, I said, keeping my voice level. Client meeting. Oh. She didn't take it off immediately. You know, you should let me style you sometime. I've picked up so many tips from the fashion houses. I'm happy with my style, I replied, extending my hand for the sweater. She pulled it off, somehow not disturbing a single hair on her head. You always were the serious one, she said, handing it over. But you're beautiful, Ava. You should show it off more. Her words were complimentary, but they landed like tiny paper cuts. The implication being that I was hiding something that needed revealing, that I wasn't doing enough with what I had. It was a familiar dynamic, one that had defined our childhood. Lila, the natural beauty who effortlessly drew attention. Me, the studious one who had to work for recognition. Did you enjoy dinner last night? I asked, changing the subject as I hung the sweater back up. It was lovely, she said, fingering the sleeve of another blouse. Your Ethan is charming. Smart, too. I can see why you're smitten. He's a good man, I said simply. Lila smiled. You deserve a good man, Ava. After everything you've been through, building your business from nothing, taking care of everything after mom and dad. She trailed off, and for a moment, genuine emotion shadowed her face. I'm glad you found someone. The sincerity in her voice made me feel petty for my earlier irritation. He kissed me goodbye, a quick peck that felt perfunctory. As he headed for the door, I noticed Lila watching him, something unreadable in her expression. After he left, she yawned dramatically. I think I'll turn in early. Jet lag's catching up again. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. That night, I called Maya, my business partner and oldest friend. Am I being paranoid? I asked after explaining what I'd seen. Maya was silent for a long moment. Maybe. But you've always had good instincts, Ava. And you trust too easily. He's my fiancé, I protested, though technically that wasn't true yet. And she's my sister. Which is why it would hurt so much if. She trailed off. If what? Maya sighed. Nothing. Just keep your eyes open, okay? And remember that no matter what happens, you've built something amazing on your own. No one can take that from you." Her words should have comforted me. Instead, they left me staring at the ceiling until dawn, wondering what exactly she thought I might lose. 2 weeks before the engagement party, I was reviewing security footage from the Grand's new camera system when something caught my eye. I'd been checking the cameras primarily to ensure they were positioned correctly and capturing the necessary angles. But as I clicked through different feeds from the previous day, when I'd been off-site at a meeting, I froze. Ethan's car was in the parking lot at 2:17 p.m., when he should have been at work. I clicked forward, watching as he entered the building using the key I'd given him for party preparations. He moved through the lobby with purpose, checking his phone repeatedly. 10 minutes later, another car pulled in. Lila stepped out, sunglasses on despite the cloudy day, scarf wrapped around her hair like a woman trying not to be recognized. My heart pounded as I followed their movements through the building. They met in the main hall, but didn't stay there. Instead, Ethan led her upstairs, to the bridal suite, the room reserved for brides to prepare on their wedding day. The room I'd imagined using myself someday. The camera inside captured everything. The way they moved together the moment the door closed. The passionate kiss that made it clear this wasn't their first. The whispered words I couldn't hear, but could imagine all too clearly. "I can't wait much longer," Lila said as they finally broke apart, her words just audible on the recording. "Soon," Ethan promised, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in the exact way he often did with me. After the party. Once everything's in place. I closed the laptop, hands shaking. For a moment, I considered confronting them immediately. Screaming, throwing things, demanding explanations. But as the initial shock ebbed, something else took its place. A cold, clear sense of purpose. They thought I was clueless. They were planning something for the engagement party, at my venue. Whatever humiliation they had in store, they expected me to be blindsided. They'd forgotten who they were dealing with. I reopened the laptop and saved the footage to a flash drive. Then I called Maya. "I need your help," I said when she answered. "And I need you to not ask questions yet." "I'm on my way," she replied without hesitation. While waiting for her, I pulled out the venue contract for the engagement party. Ethan had insisted on handling the paperwork himself, another surprise. I'd agreed, touched by his apparent thoughtfulness. Now I wondered what else I'd been blind to. When Maya arrived, I showed her the footage without comment. Her face darkened with each passing moment. "Those snakes," she whispered when it ended. "What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want. An engagement party. Just not the one they're expecting." The week before the engagement party, I became a different person. On the surface, nothing changed. I smiled at Ethan when he came over. I listened to Lila's stories about auditions and callbacks. I finalized details for the party, approving the menu Ethan had selected, the flowers he'd chosen. But inside, I was ice. I started by quietly rewriting the contracts for the Grand. The engagement party was officially booked under my name alone, not Ethan's. I made calls to vendors, confirming that only I had authority to make changes. I instructed my staff to be prepared for unexpected situations on the night of the event. No one questioned these preparations. I had built my reputation on attention to detail, on contingency planning. This was simply Ava being Ava, thorough, professional, controlled. Only Maya knew the truth. "I've been watching them," she told me over coffee 3 days before the party. She slid her phone across the table, showing me a photo she'd taken. Ethan and Lila at a cafe across town, holding hands across the table, laughing like lovers. They're not even being careful anymore. I stared at the image, surprised by how little it hurt now. The initial shock had given way to something harder, something that felt like armor forming around my heart. "Did you know," I said conversationally, "that I became sole owner of the Grand last month? Bought out my silent partner." Maya's eyebrows rose. "I didn't. That's a big move." It felt like the right time. I took back her phone, zooming in on Ethan's face. He looked happier than he had with me in months. "Everything happens for a reason, I suppose." What exactly are you planning, Ava? I smiled, a cool curve of lips that felt foreign on my face. Just a memorable party. That evening, I was cleaning up the kitchen when Ethan's phone buzzed on the counter. He was in the shower. We just returned from a dinner where he'd been particularly attentive, perhaps sensing my emotional withdrawal. The preview message flashed on his screen. Can't wait to be yours. After the party.
El cœur rouge.
I set down the dish I was drying, picked up his phone, and read the full exchange. It was worse than I'd imagined. Not just an affair, but a plan. A script they'd been following for weeks. The engagement party wasn't just an event. It was to be a stage for my public humiliation. I replaced the phone exactly where it had been and continued drying dishes. When Ethan emerged from the shower, I smiled and asked if he wanted tea. He looked relieved by my warmth, mistaking calculation for forgiveness. You seem different tonight, he said, accepting the mug I offered. More relaxed. I'm just excited for the party, I replied, the lie flowing easily. Everything's coming together perfectly. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. It's going to be a night to remember. On that, at least, we agreed. 2 days before the party, Maya came to my office at the Grand, closing the door behind her. I can't keep this from you anymore, she said, pulling out her phone again. This time the image was clearer. Ethan and Lila, locked in an embrace outside a jewelry store. The timestamp showed yesterday afternoon. I already know, I said, turning back to my computer where I was reviewing the final guest list. You know they're shopping for rings? That made me pause. They're that serious. Maya sat across from me, concern etched across her features. Ava, what are you doing? You're acting like this doesn't bother you. I met her gaze steadily. It bothered me. It doesn't anymore. Now it's just information. Useful information. This isn't you, she said quietly. You don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt. For a moment, my carefully constructed facade cracked. Of course it hurts, I whispered, my voice finally betraying the depth of my pain. I loved him, Maya. I trusted her. They were supposed to be my family. She reached across the desk, squeezing my hand. They never deserved you. I blinked back tears, refusing to let them fall. No, they didn't. And they're about to learn exactly what that means. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a flash drive. I need you to keep this safe until the party. It contains security footage from the bridal suite. I've made multiple copies. Maya took it, her expression grim. What else do you need me to do? Just be there. And maybe bring an extra bottle of champagne. I think we'll be celebrating after all. The day of the engagement party dawned bright and clear. I stood in my apartment, surveying the dress I'd selected for the evening, a sleek emerald gown that complemented my eyes and contrasted with my dark hair. Not white, not bridal. This wasn't going to be my wedding after all. Lila had left early, claiming she needed spa time before the big event. I knew she was meeting Ethan. They'd grown careless, thinking I was too distracted with party preparations to notice their absences, their whispered phone calls, their meaningful glances. I spent the morning at the Grand, personally checking every detail. The lighting was adjusted to my specifications. The sound system tested. The projector screen, an unusual addition for an engagement party, discreetly positioned. Everything looks perfect, Ms. Mitchell, my event coordinator assured me. Almost perfect, I corrected, checking my watch. There's one more thing I need to handle personally. I made my way to the administrative office, where the deed to the Grand was kept in a fireproof safe. Removing it, I placed it in an elegant folder with the Grand's embossed logo. This would be my insurance policy, my guarantee that no matter what happened tonight, some things couldn't be taken from me. As I locked the office, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Can't wait to see you tonight. It's going to be perfect. I smiled at the screen, typing back. Everything is exactly as it should be. The Grand had never looked more beautiful. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the main hall. Arrangements of white roses and greenery adorned each table. The champagne fountain, Ethan's specific request, bubbled in the center of the room. A string quartet played softly in the corner. I stood at the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived. Friends, colleagues, family members, all smiling, congratulating me, admiring the venue. None of them knew what was coming. "You've outdone yourself," my Aunt Claire said, kissing my cheek. "The place looks magical." "Thank you," I replied, genuine warmth in my voice. I'd always been close to Claire, my mother's sister, who had stepped in after my parents' death. "I'm glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Where's that handsome man of yours?" "He'll be arriving separately," I explained smoothly. Last-minute surprise to coordinate. She patted my hand. "He's a keeper, that one." So thoughtful. If only she knew. Maya appeared at my side, resplendent in a deep blue gown. "Everything's in place," she murmured. "Are you ready for this?" I nodded, scanning the growing crowd. Absolutely. At precisely 8 o'clock, Ethan made his entrance. He looked devastating in a tailored black suit, his dark hair styled perfectly, his smile confident as he moved through the room, accepting congratulations and slapping backs with easy charm. When he reached me, he kissed me deeply, a performance for our audience. "You look incredible," he said, his eyes scanning the room over my shoulder. "Is everything set up the way we discussed?" "Exactly as planned," I assured him, knowing we were talking about different plans entirely. His hand squeezed mine, and for just a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen for him. The charisma, the focus, the way he could make you feel like the center of his universe. Until something better came along. Lila arrived fashionably late, causing heads to turn as she entered in a flowing white gown that could easily have been mistaken for a wedding dress. Her blonde hair was arranged in an elegant updo, diamond earrings, new, I noticed, sparkling at her ears. She air-kissed my cheek. "The place looks amazing, sis. You've thought of everything." "I always do," I replied, my smile never wavering. The evening progressed according to schedule. Dinner was served, a four-course meal I'd selected months ago, when I still believed this night would mark the beginning of my future with Ethan. Wine flowed. Conversation hummed. But observant guests might have noticed oddities. The photo montage playing on screens around the room featured only images of me. My graduation, the opening of the Grand, vacations I'd taken alone or with friends. Not a single picture of Ethan and me together. The playlist, which shifted from elegant classical pieces to contemporary songs during dinner, included subtle choices. Before He Cheats, Stronger, Truth Hurts. Songs about betrayal and resilience. I watched Ethan and Lila throughout the night. The careful distance they maintained in public. The brief touches when they thought no one was looking. The silent communication across the room. They were waiting, building anticipation for their grand moment. I let them think they were in control. As dessert was being served, individual chocolate soufflés, my favorite, Ethan stood and tapped a spoon against his champagne glass. The room quieted, all eyes turning to him expectantly. He moved to the center of the room, his expression solemn. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," he began, his voice carrying easily through the hall. "This is a special evening, one I've been planning for some time." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. I remained seated, sipping my champagne, watching. "When I first met Ava," he continued, "I knew she was an exceptional woman. Smart, driven, successful." He glanced at me, and I raised my glass in acknowledgement. "She built all this from nothing." He gestured around the room, and I admired that immensely. Past tense. Interesting choice. "But sometimes," he said, his voice dropping slightly, "life takes unexpected turns. Sometimes we find connections where we least expect them." The room had gone completely silent now. I could feel Maya tense beside me. Ethan turned, and his gaze found Lila, who stood with practiced nonchalance near the champagne fountain. Sometimes the heart wants what it wants. He walked toward her, and the collective intake of breath from the guests was audible. Confusion rippled through the room as he stopped in front of my sister. "Lila," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you came into my life unexpectedly, but now I can't imagine it without you." Gasps. Whispers. Someone dropped a fork with a clatter. I set my champagne glass down carefully as Ethan dropped to one knee before my sister, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. "Will you marry me?" he asked, opening the box to reveal a diamond ring, larger than any he'd ever discussed giving me. Lila's eyes filled with theatrical tears. "Yes," she breathed, extending her hand. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. All eyes swung to me, waiting for the breakdown, the scene, the humiliation that would complete their evening's entertainment. Instead, I stood smoothly and walked to the small podium we'd set up for toasts. I took the microphone, my movements unhurried, deliberate. "Thank you, Ethan and Lila," I said, my voice steady, "for showing everyone exactly who you are." Confusion replaced shock on their faces. "I'd like to offer my own contribution to this special moment." I nodded to Maya, who pressed a button on her phone. The lights dimmed. The projector screen lowered from the ceiling. And there they were, Ethan and Lila in the bridal suite, their betrayal playing out in high definition for all our guests to see. The footage wasn't graphic. I had edited it carefully to show only their embraces, their kisses, their whispered planning. But it was damning. When the screen went dark again, the silence was deafening. I smiled at the stunned faces of my sister and now former fiancé. "Congratulations on your engagement. Unfortunately, I'll have to ask you both to leave." Ethan recovered first, his face flushing with anger. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" "Actually, I can." I opened the elegant folder I'd retrieved earlier and handed it to the head of security, who had materialized at my side. "This venue belongs to me. Solely. My name is on the deed, and I'm exercising my right to refuse service." Lila stepped forward, the ring glittering obscenely on her finger. "Ava, you're making a scene? Can't we discuss this privately? Like you discussed a relationship with my fiancé privately?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "I think we're past that point, don't you?" Security moved toward them, professional but firm. "Sir, miss, I'll need you to come with me." "This is insane," Ethan sputtered, looking around the room for support but finding only shocked, disapproving faces. "You can't do this." "I just did." I turned back to the guests. "I apologize for the interruption. The bar will remain open for another hour, and there's plenty of cake. Please, enjoy the rest of your evening." As security escorted them toward the exit, I heard Lila's voice rise in indignation. "You planned this. You set us up." I caught her eye as she passed.
No, Lila.
"You did that all on your own." The doors closed behind them with a satisfying thud. Maya appeared at my side, champagne bottle in hand. "That," she said, filling my glass, "was the most badass thing I've ever seen." I lifted the glass, surveying the room, my venue, my guests, my life that would continue without the two people I'd thought would be central to it. "To new beginnings," I said, taking a sip. The party lasted well into the night. Once the initial shock wore off, guests approached me with varying degrees of sympathy and admiration. My Aunt Claire hugged me fiercely, whispering that my parents would have been proud of my strength. Old friends closed ranks around me, offering support and, in some cases, legal advice about restraining orders. As the last guests departed, I stood in the center of the grand, surrounded by the remnants of what should have been my engagement celebration.
Fallen Florpetals.
Half-empty champagne glasses. Discarded napkins. Maya found me there, her expression softening as she took in my stillness. "How are you really doing?" she asked quietly. I considered the question, searching for the truth beneath my carefully maintained composure. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I will." She nodded, understanding what I couldn't quite articulate. The betrayal hadn't just ended my relationship, it had altered my perception of everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and family. "Whatever comes next," she said, linking her arm through mine, "you won't face it alone." I looked around the empty hall one last time before we turned off the lights. In the darkness, I made a silent promise to myself. This was not an ending. It was the beginning of something stronger. I woke the morning after the engagement party to my phone vibrating itself off the nightstand. Squinting at the screen, I saw 15 missed calls, 37 text messages, and a notification that my email inbox had reached capacity. "What the hell?" I muttered, scrolling through the messages. Most were from friends and family checking on me, but several were from numbers I didn't recognize with texts like, "You're my hero," and "The way you handled that was iconic." I opened Instagram to find my follower count had tripled overnight. My latest post, a simple photo of the Grand's exterior I'd shared a week earlier, had thousands of new comments. That's when I saw the video. Someone had recorded Ethan's proposal to Lila, my calm response, and the security footage reveal. The 60-second clip had already amassed over 2 million views, with a caption that read, "She owned the moment, nail polish fire." I sat up in bed, my head spinning. This wasn't part of my plan. My revenge was supposed to be contained, personal, witnessed only by those in attendance. I never considered it might go viral.
My phone rang again.
"Maya, have you seen it?" she asked without preamble. "Just now," I replied, still processing. "Who posted it?" "Someone named at Events Insider. One of the catering staff, I think. I'm trying to get it taken down, but it's already everywhere." I finished for her. Maya hesitated. "Are you upset?" I considered the question, examining my feelings with clinical detachment. Was I upset that millions of strangers were witnessing what should have been a private humiliation? That my personal trauma had become public entertainment? Strangely, I wasn't. "No," I finally answered. "Let them see. Let everyone see exactly who Ethan and Lila really are." "That's not the response I expected," Maya admitted. "Me neither." I got out of bed and moved to the window, pulling back the curtains to let in the morning light. But I'm done hiding things. They operated in shadows. I won't. As I spoke the words, I felt their truth settle into my bones. The secrecy, the lies, the carefully maintained facades, those belonged to Ethan and Lila. My power came from transparency, from standing in the light. "Well, in that case," Maya said, her voice taking on a different tone, "you should know that Lila's already doing damage control." She posted a tearful Instagram story at 3 a.m. I pulled up my sister's profile. Sure enough, there she was, mascara artfully smudged, eyes red-rimmed, her usually perfect hair disheveled in a way that still somehow looked glamorous. "I never meant to hurt anyone," her caption read. "Sometimes the heart doesn't follow the rules. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Privacy? That's rich coming from the woman who planned to humiliate me in front of everyone I know. "There's more," Maya continued. 3 of her brand partnerships have already dropped her. Apparently, stealing your sister's fiancé isn't a good look for a skincare line promoting inner beauty.
A petty part of me felt satisfied by this.
Lila had always coasted on her looks, her charm, her ability to make people love her. For once, those assets weren't enough to save her. "What about Ethan?" I asked. "Nothing yet, but I've heard rumblings. His company relies heavily on your investment connections. People are asking questions." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Ethan's tech firm had been on the verge of a major merger, one I'd helped facilitate through my network. The deal would have doubled the company's valuation overnight. "I should make some calls," I said, already mentally listing the investors I needed to speak with. "Ava," Maya's voice softened, "are you sure you want to go down this road? Revenge is one thing, but actively dismantling their lives." "I'm not dismantling anything," I replied, my tone measured. "I'm simply telling the truth. What happens after that is up to them." I spent the morning fielding calls and messages, responding only to those from people who truly mattered. Around noon, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Lila, still in yesterday's white dress, makeup smeared beyond artistic tragedy into something truly pitiful. I considered ignoring her, but curiosity won out. "What do you want?" I asked, opening the door but blocking the entrance. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Can I come in?" "Just for a minute." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. Lila entered hesitantly, as if expecting traps. She looked around my apartment, the home she'd been living in for months, taking advantage of my generosity while plotting behind my back. "I lost everything," she said, collapsing onto my sofa. 3 contracts canceled this morning. My agent isn't returning my calls. And the comments.
She shuddered.
They're calling me a snake, a backstabber, worse. That's unfortunate, I replied, remaining standing. What exactly did you expect? Her eyes flashed with familiar indignation. I expected you to handle this privately, not turn it into some public spectacle, like you and Ethan planned to do to me? I raised an eyebrow. Wasn't that the point of the surprise proposal at my engagement party? Maximum humiliation. It wasn't like that, she protested, but weakly. We didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened. Nothing just happens, Lila. You made choices.
So did Ethan.
So did I. She looked up at me, tears welling in her eyes. He tricked me too, you know. He said you two were already drifting apart. That you were too absorbed in your business to notice him anymore. That you wouldn't care. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Instead, I walked to my laptop, opened it, and turned the screen toward her. Let me show you something. I played the unedited footage from the bridal suite, the parts one hadn't shown at the party. Lila and Ethan planning exactly how they would announce their relationship. Laughing about my expected reaction. Ethan assuring her that once the shock wore off, I'd get over it because Ava always does the right thing. Lila's face drained of color. We didn't. You didn't what? Think I'd find out? Or think I'd fight back? She stared at the frozen image on the screen, unable to deny the evidence of her own betrayal. I came to ask for your forgiveness, she said finally, her voice small. To see if we could salvage something. There's nothing to salvage, Lila. I closed the laptop. You didn't just betray me. You showed me exactly who you've always been. I just refused to see it until now. What am I supposed to do? She asked, desperation creeping into her tone. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. I moved to the door, opening it in clear dismissal. You should have thought about consequences before you kissed back. After she left, I leaned against the closed door, exhaling slowly. The confrontation had drained me more than I'd expected. Part of me, the part that remembered building blanket forts with Lila as children, holding her hand at our parents' funeral, ached with loss. But that sister was gone. Perhaps she'd never really existed at all. My phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from Ethan's company, a formal request to meet with their board of directors. The subject line read, Urgent discussion forthcoming merger. I smiled, composing a polite response that I'd be happy to meet, just as soon as they removed Ethan from the negotiation table. 3 days later, I sat across from Richard Bennett, the silver-haired chairman of Ethan's board. We were in the private dining room of an exclusive restaurant, the kind that didn't list prices on the menu. I appreciate you meeting with me, Ava, he began, his tone carefully neutral. Recent events have been unfortunate. That's one word for it, I replied, sipping my water. He cleared his throat. The board wanted me to express that Ethan's personal actions don't reflect the company's values. We hope this incident won't affect our professional relationship. By incident, you mean my fiancé publicly leaving me for my sister after months of deception? And by professional relationship, you mean the merger I helped broker that would increase your company's value by roughly $200 million? Richard had the grace to look uncomfortable.
Essentially, yes.
I set down my glass. The merger is still possible, Richard. But not with Ethan involved. He's the CEO, he protested, though weakly. And you're the board. CEOs can be replaced. His eyes narrowed slightly. You want us to fire him? I want you to make a business decision, I corrected. Ethan has demonstrated poor judgment, ethical lapses, and a willingness to betray those closest to him. Are those qualities you want in someone leading your company through a critical transition? Richard was silent, considering. Finally, he nodded. I'll bring your concerns to the board. But between us. He leaned forward. Several members were already questioning his position after the video went viral. This may simply accelerate the inevitable. I smiled, raising my glass. To sound business decisions. 2 weeks after the engagement party, Ethan was removed as CEO of his own company. The The press release cited strategic differences and a mutual decision to pursue new leadership during this pivotal growth phase. I received his email the same day. The subject line read simply, "Please,
Ava,
I know you won't believe this, but I never meant for things to happen this way." What started as harmless flirtations spiraled out of control. I've lost everything: my company, my reputation, most of my friends. Even Lila has stopped returning my calls. I was a fool. I threw away something real for something that wasn't. Could we meet?
just to talk?
I miss you. I miss us. Please.
I'm sorry.
Ethan. I read the message twice, searching for any flicker of emotion. Longing, anger, satisfaction. I found none. Just a hollow recognition that the man who wrote these words was never the man I thought I knew. My reply was brief. Return the keys to my apartment and venue by tomorrow. Do not contact me again. He didn't respond, but the keys appeared in my mailbox the next morning, along with a handwritten letter I didn't bother to read. That afternoon, I accepted an invitation from a popular podcast host who wanted to interview me. Not about betrayal, she assured me, but about how to flip pain into power. As I prepared for the interview, carefully selecting an outfit that projected strength without arrogance, I realized something had fundamentally shifted inside me. The wound of betrayal was still there, but it no longer dominated my thoughts. Instead, I found myself focused on the future, my business, my goals, my newly clarified understanding of my own worth. The betrayal hadn't broken me. It had revealed me. Welcome to Turning Points, the podcast where we explore life's pivotal moments and how they shape us. I'm your host, Daniela Chun, and today I'm joined by Ava Mitchell, entrepreneur and owner of The Grand, who recently found herself at the center of what many are calling the wedding venue revenge story that captivated social media. I smiled politely at Daniela across the recording studio table, mentally adjusting my prepared talking points. I'd agreed to this interview to reclaim my narrative, not to feed the viral frenzy. "Thank you for having me, Daniela," I said, my voice steadier than I'd expected. Though I should clarify, it wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. She nodded, respecting the correction. Fair enough. Let's start there. Many people would have crumbled under such public betrayal. Instead, you responded with remarkable composure. Where did that strength come from? I considered the question carefully. I built my business from nothing after losing my parents. That experience taught me that while you can't control what happens to you, you can control how you respond. When I discovered my fiancé and sister's betrayal, my first instinct was to fall apart. But then I remembered who I am, what I've survived, what I've built. "And what you owned," Daniela added with a knowing smile. "Yes," I acknowledged. The venue being solely in my name wasn't about setting a trap. It was about protecting what I'd created, something I'd done long before I had any reason to doubt Ethan or Lila. The interview continued for nearly an hour, focusing not on the salacious details of the betrayal but on resilience, entrepreneurship, and the importance of financial independence. Before we wrap up, Daniela said, "I have to ask, what's next for you and The Grand?" I smiled, ready for this question. Actually, I'm in the process of rebranding. The Grand will become the flagship location of Her, a woman-owned, woman-run luxury event chain focused on creating spaces where people can celebrate authentically. Her, Daniela repeated. I like that. Simple but powerful. Like the women it's designed to serve, I replied. As the interview concluded, Daniela leaned across the table. Off the record, that was badass what you did. Standing up for yourself like that. I thanked her, gathering my things to leave. Sometimes standing up for yourself is the only option. The podcast aired 3 days later and immediately trended across platforms. My inbox filled with messages from women sharing their own stories of betrayal and recovery. Investment offers poured in for the Her expansion. A TEDx organizer reached out, asking if I'd consider giving a talk titled, "Owning the Room, Even When It's Burning." Amid the professional whirlwind, I received another unwelcome update about Lila. She'd posted a tearful 15-minute video on her YouTube channel, portraying herself as a victim of circumstances and social media bullying. "I've lost everything," she sobbed dramatically into the camera. "My career, my sister, my reputation, all because of one mistake. Everyone deserves a second chance." The video received mixed reactions, some sympathetic comments, others calling out her victim narrative. What Lila failed to mention was that she'd already signed with a reality TV producer for a show documenting her journey to redemption. I closed the browser tab without finishing the video. Lila would always land on her feet. It was what she did best. But for the first time, I didn't feel responsible for catching her. 3 months after the engagement party, Hearst's rebranding was complete. The Grand's transformation, with its elegant new signage, updated website, and refreshed interior, attracted feature articles in several business and lifestyle publications. Bookings increased by 40%. I should have been elated. Instead, I found myself sitting alone in my office late one night, staring at an old photo I discovered while cleaning out files. Ethan and me at a charity gala a year earlier, both smiling, his arm around my waist.
We looked happy.
We looked real. A single tear splashed onto the glossy surface. "Damn it," I whispered, angry at the weakness. After everything, how could I still miss him? Not the man who had betrayed me, but the man I thought he was. The one who brought me coffee in bed, who remembered small details about my childhood, who had once felt like home. The office door opened softly, and Maya stepped in, concern etching her features when she saw my face. "Oh, Ava," she said, moving to my side. "What's wrong?" I showed her the photo, embarrassed by my vulnerability. "I found this earlier. I thought I was past all this." Maya took the picture, studying it for a moment before setting it face down on the desk. "Healing isn't linear, you know. Some days are harder than others." "I shouldn't still care," I said bitterly. "After what he did, what they both did, I shouldn't feel anything." "But you do," Maya replied gently. "Because you're human. Because you loved him. That doesn't make you weak, Ava. It makes you real." She perched on the edge of my desk. "You didn't lose anything valuable when you lost Ethan. You lost an illusion. And you gained something much more important, clarity about who you are and what you deserve." I wiped my eyes, her words resonating with something deep inside me. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise," she shot back with a grin. "You were just too busy building an empire to notice." We laughed together, the tension breaking. Maya helped me clear the remaining files, and as we worked, she mentioned that a new investor wanted to meet about backing Hearst's expansion. "His name's Jordan Chen," she said casually. "Former VP at Ethan's company, actually. Apparently, he left around the same time Ethan was pushed out. Said he couldn't work for a company that would keep someone like Ethan in leadership as long as they did." I raised an eyebrow. "Sounds principled." "He is," Maya agreed. "And smart. His investment strategy has been impressive. I've set up a meeting for next week." Jordan Chen turned out to be nothing like I'd expected. Quiet and thoughtful where Ethan had been charismatic and commanding, he spoke with a measured confidence that never veered into arrogance. During our initial meeting, he asked insightful questions about Hearst's business model and expansion plans, listening carefully to my responses. "I've been following your career for a while," he admitted over coffee after our formal meeting concluded. "Even before the incident. Your approach to building the Grand was revolutionary in the event space. You prioritize both luxury and accessibility. That's rare." "You seem to know a lot about my business," I observed, not sure whether to be flattered or concerned. He smiled, the expression warming his serious face. "I make it a point to study successful entrepreneurs, especially those building something meaningful. And after what happened with Ethan," he hesitated. "I want you to know I always thought he was a fool. Not just for his personal choices, but for taking your investment connections for granted." "You don't need to distance yourself from him on my account," I said, appreciating his candor nonetheless. "I'm not," he assured me. "I left that company because I didn't respect the leadership, Ethan, or the board that enabled him for too long. My interest in her is purely based on its merits and your vision." By the end of our meeting, I'd accepted his investment offer. The terms were excellent, and his expertise in scaling businesses would be valuable as her expanded. As spring turned to summer, life settled into a new rhythm. Her second location opened to considerable fanfare. The TEDx talk I'd given went viral, increasing my profile as a business speaker. I even started dating again, casually, cautiously, but with a clearer sense of what I wanted and deserved. Jordan became not just an investor but a trusted advisor, his steady presence a welcome contrast to the chaos of the previous year. We developed an easy working relationship that gradually evolved into friendship, though I kept a careful emotional distance. Then came the invitation, an exclusive businesswomen's retreat in Italy, hosted by a legendary entrepreneur I'd admired for years. Only 50 women worldwide had been invited. "You have to go," Maya insisted when I showed her the email. "This isn't just a networking opportunity, it's recognition." She was right. The invitation represented something I'd been working toward long before Ethan or the viral video, acknowledgement of my business acumen and vision. This wasn't about being the woman from that video. This was about being Ava Mitchell, entrepreneur. The day before my flight, I received a notification that someone had tagged me in a post. It was from an anonymous account, sharing side-by-side photos, Ethan and Lila from 6 months ago, looking glamorous at my engagement party, contrasted with a recent paparazzi shot of them arguing outside a restaurant, both looking haggard and stressed. The caption read, "Time reveals all truths. Some karma needs no assistance." I untagged myself and blocked the account. Their story was no longer part of mine. As the plane took off the next morning, I gazed out the window at the shrinking cityscape below. Somewhere down there was the apartment I'd shared with Ethan, the venue where he'd betrayed me, the life I'd thought I wanted. I didn't miss any of it. "Next time I fall in love," I whispered to myself as the plane banked toward the sunrise, "it'll be with someone who claps when I win." 1 year to the day after the infamous engagement party, I stood at the entrance of Hearst's newest location, a stunning converted warehouse in the Arts District that had once been owned by Ethan's family investment group. The property had come on the market shortly after his company's stock plummeted following a failed product launch and exodus of key talent. I hadn't planned the timing. Some cosmic coincidences arranged themselves. "Nervous?" Jordan asked, appearing at my side in a perfectly tailored suit, his quiet presence grounding as always. I smiled, adjusting the lapel of my white blazer. "Not nervous. Reflective." He nodded, understanding without needing elaboration. In the 9 months since he'd invested in her, Jordan had become more than a business partner. Our professional relationship had gradually evolved into something deeper, tentative at first, then increasingly certain. "Well, you look beautiful," he said simply. "And everything is ready. They're waiting for you." Inside, the transformed space glowed with warm lighting. Unlike the Grand's traditional elegance, this location embraced industrial chic, exposed brick walls, soaring ceilings with original beams, and custom fixtures that merged vintage and modern aesthetics. 300 guests mingled beneath art installations created by local women artists. I moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and fielding questions about future expansion plans. Her had become a phenomenon, with locations now in 3 cities and negotiations underway for international partnerships. "There she is," a familiar voice called out. Maya approached, resplendent in a jumpsuit that complemented her new role as Hearst's chief creative officer. The woman of the hour. She hugged me tightly, then stepped back to assess my expression. "How are you feeling? Really?" I considered her question carefully. "Complete," I finally answered. "Like everything that happened was leading here." Maya nodded approvingly. "I knew you'd get here eventually. Though I'll admit, there were moments I worried. You never showed it. That's what friends are for. Believing in you even when you don't quite believe in yourself." A chime rang, signaling the start of the formal program. I made my way to the small stage, taking in the expectant faces of investors, clients, media, and friends. A year ago, I began without preamble. I experienced what many would consider a worst-case scenario. My fiancé left me for my sister, publicly, dramatically, and with calculated cruelty. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Though most knew the story, I rarely referenced it directly. That night, standing in the venue I'd built from nothing, I had a choice to make. I could be destroyed by betrayal, or I could be defined by resilience. I chose the latter. I paused, letting my gaze travel over the room. But this isn't a story about revenge, despite what the viral videos might suggest. This is a story about reclamation, about recognizing that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to what you truly need. As I continued my speech, outlining Hearst's mission and future plans, I spotted a familiar figure slipping in at the back of the room, Aunt Claire, who had remained my steadfast supporter throughout the past year. Beside her stood a tall man I didn't recognize until he turned slightly and the light caught his profile. My father. Not my biological father. He'd been gone for years, but his brother, my Uncle Robert, who had distanced himself from the family after falling out with my mother decades ago. I hadn't seen him since I was a child. I faltered momentarily, then recovered, finishing my speech to enthusiastic applause. As soon as I could politely extract myself from the crowd, I made my way to the back of the room. "Uncle Robert," I said, still shocked by his presence. "I wasn't expecting you." He looked older than I remembered, his once dark hair now silver, but his eyes, my father's eyes, were the same. "Claire told me about the opening," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "And about everything that happened last year. I should have been there for you." "You're here now," I replied, surprising myself with the immediate forgiveness in my voice. He nodded, glancing around the venue with unmistakable pride. "Your father would have been amazed by what you've built, Ava. He always said you were the strong one." Something tight in my chest loosened at his words. For so long, I'd carried the weight of my parents' expectations, wondering if I'd lived up to what they'd imagined for me. Now, standing in this space I'd created, surrounded by people who believed in my vision, I finally felt worthy of their faith. Later that night, after the last guests had departed, I found myself alone in the empty venue. Jordan had offered to stay, but I'd asked for a moment to myself, a private commemoration of the journey that had led me here. I walked to the center of the room, remembering how I'd stood in the grand a year earlier, surrounded by the wreckage of what should have been my engagement celebration. Then, I'd been in shock, running on adrenaline and cold calculation. Now, I felt a profound sense of peace. My phone buzzed with a notification. A year-old memory from my photo app, the engagement party invitation I designed, featuring Ethan's name alongside mine in elegant script. I deleted it without hesitation. From my purse, I removed a small box labeled Engagement Night. Inside were the items I'd kept as reminders: the venue contract with Ethan's signature, the flash drive containing the security footage, the key he'd returned. One by one, I placed them in the decorative fire pit that served as a centerpiece in the lounge area. When I struck the match, the flames caught quickly, consuming these last physical connections to a past that no longer defined me. As I watched them burn, I heard footsteps behind me. Jordan approached cautiously, respecting my space while offering his presence. "I saw the lights were still on," he said. "Thought you might want company." I smiled, making room for him beside me. Perfect timing. We stood together, watching the last of the papers curl and blacken in the flames. Jordan didn't ask what I was burning. He didn't need to. He'd become skilled at reading my silences, at knowing when to speak and when to simply be present. "I've been thinking," he said after a while, "about something you said in your speech tonight. About losing what you thought you wanted, opening the door to what you truly need." I looked up at him, noting the serious set of his features. And I realized something. He turned to face me fully. "I don't want to be just your investor, or your advisor, or even just your friend, Ava. I want more. But only if you do." My heart quickened. We'd been dancing around this shift for months, both of us cautious for different reasons, me because of past betrayal, him because of professional boundaries. "What exactly are you proposing, Jordan?" I asked, the choice of words deliberate. He smiled, recognizing the test implicit in my question. "Not that, not yet."
I'm proposing honesty.
Possibility. A beginning without an elaborate plan or hidden agenda. Just us, seeing where this goes. I studied his face, searching for any hint of the calculation I'd eventually recognized in Ethan's expressions. I found none, only earnest emotion and patient anticipation. I'd like that, I said finally, but on one condition. Name it. We take it slowly. I'm still learning to trust again, not just others, but my own judgment. He nodded, reaching for my hand and squeezing it gently. I've got nothing but time, Ava. And you're worth waiting for. As we left the venue together, I paused to look back at the illuminated her sign above the entrance. Bold, simple, unmistakable. My creation. My legacy. A year ago, I'd stood frozen as my world collapsed around me. Tonight, I walked forward by choice, toward a future entirely of my own design. The betrayal that was meant to break me had instead revealed my strength, clarified my purpose, and ultimately, set me free. In losing what I thought was love, I had found something far more valuable, myself. You know, Jordan said as we stepped into the cool night air, most people would have given up after what you went through. They would have moved away, started over somewhere new. I shook my head, looking up at the stars scattered across the clear night sky. I didn't need a new beginning. I just needed to remember who I was all along. And who is that? He asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. I smiled, the answer rising from somewhere deep and certain within me. Someone who doesn't need to be rescued. Someone who owns the room, even when it's burning. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself after someone tried to break you? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more stories about turning betrayal into power, because sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well, it's thriving beyond anyone's expectations.